All right, let me bring in my think tank tonight. Join us from outside the courthouse in Wisconsin. Criminal defense attorney Jason Luczak joins us. In studio, civil and criminal defense attorney Jesse Law and criminal defense attorneys Quentin Washington and Ashley McMahon. Great to have everyone here. Let's start right here. How effective is it, number one, just by the fact that they're calling the defendant's own father in their case?
Well, I think, Vinny, as you know, as a former prosecutor, sometimes you're going to have to call a witness that you believe may be hostile to your case, especially when they have a piece of evidence like this, that there was a missing knife in the house. This is a piece of evidence that you have to get in. You have to get this testimony in. And I have to admit, you know, to Mr. Carlin's credit, he was very well coached by the defense. He kept his cool. He repeated multiple times. It's not unusual for me to lose tools in the house, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought he did a very good job testifying, even though I'm sure he didn't want to be called in this case.
But the impression that he would leave with the jury is that, number one, you have the defendant's father on the stand, and he possesses these knives, and is in a location where the defendant could have access to these weapons. So irrespective of whether he's coached or whether he looks calm and cool, I mean, they're just laying down the groundwork that defendant could have access to the weapon because it was in a father's home.
And I'm taking from it, Vinny, that he didn't want to testify. Like the reticence that he's showing, I think the jurors are taking that into consideration to say, if he doesn't want to testify, it's because he doesn't want to give negative evidence against his daughter. And they take that to make determinations about guilt or innocence.
Jason, what do you think? You know, the defense trying to, on cross-examination, get out the point that, oh, he also gave his daughter some knives. What do you think the jury takes away from all this? The fact that, hey, he had two of these knives, one is missing, and she took it because she was planning a murder, or she just happened to have a knife in the car?
Well, I think it's two things. I mean, I think the defense laid a great groundwork that the father had a lot of guns in the house. So she's premeditated, and I think it shrinks the prosecution's timeline down, because at what point in time does she decide that, you know, she's going to commit a murder? When she has free access to many guns in the house. And then on top of it, I might have missed it, but I never saw the prosecution show the actual murder weapon to the father. So I think that that's a big hole in the case. What knives are we talking about at this point? You know, we certainly went through arduous, laborious amount of testimony about the DNA today. So why not, you know, show that picture of the knife to lay some foundation that, yes, that is a knife that I owned. I mean, that seemed like a big hole in the prosecution today.
And why do we think that hole may exist? Is it because this is a witness who's not cooperating and you don't ask a question that you may not know the answer to?
I think you've got a missing knife in this case, you know, and a potential missing murder weapon. I think it's pretty obvious. And just as Quentin said, I absolutely believe the jury is laying down the foundation in this and putting these pieces of the puzzle together as they're listening to the prosecution's case. I think that's definitely what they're doing.
Do you think, though, and the point being that, okay, this witness obviously wants to help his daughter, so does the jury. The jury gets that, don't they? I mean, they understand that no father, even if he believes that she did it, wants to be part of the prosecution case.
Well, I think that's entirely true. But the other thing that I'll say a lot of times when we're talking is, but what's the counter narrative? Why was she that closely involved and that closely, with all the circumstances around her, involved in this unless she did it or knows what's happening? Like, that's what the jury has to get an understanding of. And him being hesitant about testifying about this information leads them to believe, well, he may know a little something, or it might actually be that the knife that she used was his, taken from his home, and he's trying to cover for her. And then at that point, it makes it more likely that she did it.
The impression is that there's a knife missing, and it's in a location where the defendant could have access to that weapon. Now, why they didn't show a picture of that knife to the father and say, I'm showing you exhibit ABC, is this the knife that you bought, and is that the knife that was missing? That may go against the prosecution if he looks at the picture and says, oh, I've never seen that knife before. So maybe the only thing that the prosecution wanted to lay out was a knife was missing.
Yeah. Hey, John, couldn't the defense also do that, though, John? Couldn't the defense show him a picture, say, is this the knife? And if the truth is it's not the knife, then the jury will find out.
Yeah, they could. They certainly could. But I think they were very strategic. I think that it showed that they definitely had some prep time with the witness that the prosecution didn't have, because they got the father to admit certain facts that are against his own interest. He admitted to being drunk that night, and which explains away or attempts to explain away some of the things that he said, some of which didn't get into evidence. But obviously, they're trying to lay the groundwork and humanize their client, in front of this jury, and I think that they were effective. I mean, it was clearly choreographed. She was definitely emotional, and obviously she's going to be. But I think it was the first time in this trial where we really saw an attempt to humanize Ezra in this case.
But at the end of the day, let's put all this legal and the lawyering and the strategy aside. Let's go for something that might be kind of foreign to some of us here. The truth, okay? Right. That's his knife. Right. That's the knife that's missing, right? I mean, come on, Jason, I'm sorry. Jason, that's his knife, right? You agree that that's the knife? Because if it wasn't, the defense would know it wasn't because they've had access to the father, and he would just tell him on the stand that it wasn't the knife.
Yeah, it's probably the knife, but not to lawyer this, but we've got a burden of proof here. And, and to take so much time with the DNA evidence in a case where it's obvious that there's going to be DNA from everyone who was involved, Alexander and Ezra, at the scene, where they're trying to piece that together. It's just an odd, it's something to make you pause and think, why would they not show that? It's just, it's odd, and it may have been an oversight because you're dealing with a witness that you don't really know what they're going to say. And I mean, the amount of times he said, I don't know, I don't remember, it reminds me when a witness is difficult in a deposition. You have a witness who's coached and they seemingly don't remember a lot of things. And then when their lawyer is asking a question, well, then they magically, seem to remember, everything that went on. So, I mean, that may come out and the jurors may really question his motivations. But, I think it walked the line enough to where jurors could start having those seeds of doubt.
Yeah, and especially if it's pointed out during the closing argument by the defense. When we come back, Jason mentioned the guns in the house. That's another big issue in this case because the defense is arguing, hey, wait a minute, there are a whole bunch of guns there. So if you're going to commit a murder, why would you steal a knife when you could steal a gun?
When you're looking for answers, it's good to have help because the right information at the right time may make all the difference. At Humana, we know that's especially true when you're looking for a Medicare supplement insurance plan. That's why we're offering 7 things every Medicare supplement should have. It's yours free, just for calling the number on your screen. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You see, Medicare covers only about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. That's why so many people purchase Medicare supplement insurance plans like those offered by Humana. They're designed to help you save money and pay some of the costs Medicare doesn't. Depending on the Medicare supplement plan you select, you could have no deductibles or copayments for doctor visits, hospital stays, emergency care, and more. You can keep the doctors you have now, ones you know and trust, with no referrals needed. Plus, you can get medical care anywhere in the country, even when you're traveling. With Humana, you get a competitive monthly premium and personalized service from a healthcare partner working to make healthcare simpler and easier for you. You can choose from a wide range of standardized plans. Each one is designed to work seamlessly with Medicare and help save you money. So how do you find the plan that's right for you? One that fits your needs and your budget. Call Humana now at the number on your screen for this free guide. It's just one of the ways that Humana is making healthcare simpler. And when you call, a knowledgeable licensed agent producer can answer any questions you have and help you choose the plan that's right for you. The call is free and there's no obligation. You know Medicare won't cover all your medical costs, so call now and see why a Medicare supplement plan from a company like Humana just might be the answer.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare coverage helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-497-5903. That's 1-800-497-5903 now.
This is the kind of card that has America talking. With it, people with Medicare are getting all-in-one coverage for their doctor visits, hospital care, prescription drugs, and more. This kind of insurance, called Medicare Part C, may also cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, fitness programs, vitamins, even healthy meals and rides to the doctor. With this kind of coverage, you do not need a Medicare supplement insurance plan. You will access your benefits through your Medicare Part C plan for one low and oftentimes $0 monthly plan premium. You deserve to get the most from your Medicare benefits. Call now for free information that may help you get more coverage for less money. There is no obligation to enroll. Whether for yourself or someone you love, call the number on the screen now. Call now.
You're a gun owner.
Yes.
You have lots of guns in your house, correct?
There are several, yes.
And I didn't mean to say lots, like, how many guns do you have in your house?
In the proximity of a dozen.
Okay. And did you tell the police about the guns that were in your house?
I did.
Were some of the guns in a safe?
None of them are in a safe.
Where are the guns?
There's a gun cabinet upstairs.
Is the gun cabinet locked?
The gun cabinet itself is not locked, but the guns do have locks.
Okay. Are all of the guns in the gun cabinet with locks?
No.
There were guns that were accessible to Ezra McCandless in your house on March 22nd, 2018. Agreed?
Readily
Objection
available.
calls for speculation.
Overrule the objection. You may answer that question and then we're going to move on.
Were the guns accessible to Ezra McCandless in your house on March 22nd, 2018?
They're readily available, yes.
All right, so this is where I guess the defense is going. Hey, if she's going to commit a murder, she's going to use a gun, not a knife, because that's the way you kill somebody. All right, let me bring my think tank. Will the jury buy that one?
No. Just to be the short answer to your question, because you gotta answer the question about what happened with the knife. If you don't answer the question about what happened with the knife, you're gonna get a question from the jurors about, was the knife identified as belonging to the father? And at that point, if that's not in evidence, then the judge has to send back a note. You have to decide this based on the evidence given.
But here's the thing, if you're getting questions from the jurors, I think as a defense attorney, you have already done your job. Because how do you get beyond a reasonable doubt in a case if the jury is coming back with questions about the very thing that you're asking them in closing?
Well,
You mean why a knife? Why a gun? Why a knife when you could have taken a gun?
Yeah, that's what the defense is arguing here through the cross-examination is that, well, if you're going to kill someone, you use a gun, obviously. You don't use a knife. You would steal Dad's gun. You wouldn't take his EMT knife.
Yes, from the Bible 1, 2, 3 on how to commit a murder. No, there is no way or no how of telling a defendant, the preferred weapon of choice should always be a gun if you're faced with that particular dilemma. I mean, whatever she did, or if she was the one who retrieved the knife, there's no way of telling, should I get the knife or should I get the gun?
Or you could be like Jodi Arias and you use both. I mean, she stabbed Travis Alexander 27 times and shot him in the head.
Well, that's option number 3.
Jason, you brought this up initially, so I'm going to blame you. Do you think the defense can sell this? That she's obviously not a murderer, because if she was a murderer, she would have stolen Dad's gun, not his knife?
Yeah, did you hear my silence? I buy it. I mean, I totally buy it, because it's not an issue of what's a better implement. it's an issue of premeditation. And I mean, the prosecution locked in. They locked in on this idea that when she left, she had she had the intent to go out and commit a murder. And obviously, if that's her intent, well, what does she bring with her? Dad has guns in the house, freely accessible. She's stayed in the house multiple times. I mean, I think that it's a seed of doubt. It's a pause that you would have in deciding, well, at what point in time? I think the prosecution has basically narrowed down the point in time where she makes the decision, I am going to commit this murder. And the closer in time we get to that decision and the time where there's any sort of altercation out on that muddy road, the closer we get to, I think, a not guilty verdict. But I think there's a long way to go before we get there. But today was a step in that direction, certainly.
I'm always a little skeptical of the defense when they start arguing there's a better way to commit the murder, right? This happens in a lot of trials that I've covered through the years. If someone was really going to commit the murder, this is the way they would do it. Why would they do it like that? To me, that's always to me, I look at it as a sign of weakness, but maybe jurors see it differently. I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded.
So here's the question.
Jason said the prosecution's locked themselves into premeditation. I mean, they have. They've done this to
Right,
themselves.
and she stole the knife.
Yeah, but who steals the knife?
But if she was really going to wanting to kill him, she would have stolen the gun instead?
Well, no, here's what people aren't answering this question. How was Mr. Woodworth killed?
With the knife.
Okay, so he was killed with a knife, right?
Yes,
She
16 times, stabbed in the head, in the neck, in the scrotum.
That's
he
my
bled
point.
out. Did you see all the blood at the crime scene?
They're not
Charles
mutually
Middleton and
exclusive.
I went through it all.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's not mutually exclusive. So she didn't steal, she didn't take a gun. Okay.
Right.
The guy still died from a knife wound, from several
So
knife
it worked.
wounds.
Her choice worked.
Her choice worked, but then here's the other thing. There also, the boy that's carved in the arm, which came from a knife, what if the premeditation was, I'm gonna make it look like there was a struggle that ensued, and I tried to protect myself by stabbing him, and then I also put this boy in my arm to show that that's what he was doing to me because he was controlling me as part of the
And you
narrative
can't
about what
carve
happened.
that with a gun. So the knife is actually Jason, the knife is actually a better choice. How about that?
Yeah, no, you see this argument that we're having. If they have this in the jury room, I'm looking at everyone and saying, we have a reasonable doubt. I mean, I think that whenever you.
We're only
the
having that argument if
prosecution
you're in the
locks in on a
jury room,
theory,
though, Jason.
the person in time. They probably want me in the jury room.
Oh, that would be
no,
fun.
but I think that it's the issue of premeditation at the time. And if you believe the dad, she didn't steal the knife. He gave the knife to her in for self-defense, which apparently, according to her, she had to use at some point. Now, whether they buy that, I don't know. But it's, from kind of the shift of what we saw this morning and into the early afternoon, it definitely was, I think, a net positive for the defense with the father testifying.
Yeah, but again, I come back to the father, Ashley, and when I look at the dad, I say, if my child was on trial for murder, I don't care if they did it. You are not going to use me to get any closer to a conviction. I saw the same thing in the Casey Anthony trial. I mean, yes, they knew that she was guilty because she was lying to the parents, yet the parents, especially Cindy Anthony, lied on the stand basically to save her daughter. And you can't blame a parent for doing that.
That's
and I would
of course
expect
not.
that, but maybe jurors aren't necessarily convinced by that. I
Well,
don't know.
that's something the prosecution is going to have to hammer home in their close when they wrap up and go over everybody who testified and the way that they testified and what their motivations or biases might be in this case, And I'm sure that's something that our lovely prosecutors in this case will absolutely be doing. They'll say, hey, look, it's her father. He's going to say anything to prove that she is not guilty of this crime. And you have to take that into consideration when you consider his testimony and the questions that I asked him this and the questions that I asked him that, and you saw that he wasn't ready to answer. You bring it up. You announce it to the jury.
And there's also the argument that the defendant has been a victim of sexual assault. And so the premeditation may not have been initiated by the time when she took the knife from the father's home. She may have already had the knife with her just in due course of, protecting herself due to her history of sexual, being a victim of sexual assaults. And the knife just came in handy when she was with Woodworth that day.
that's not consistent with the story that they're locked into. That becomes a little bit of a problem for prosecutors if you have to go down that road, and then that could be difficult. And I think that's what Jason is talking about. Jason, you're turning my panel on me now, one at a time. What are you doing? We're gonna have to turn off his microphone.
I'm not
here
trying
tonight.
to. I'm not trying.
I know, the facts are the facts. They are what they are. All right, folks, when we come back, and this is an important piece of evidence, Judge Washington just mentioned it, the carving of that word boy on the arm of the defendant. At one point she said Alex did it, then she said she did it herself, and her attorney's cross-examining saying, could someone else have done it? Well, we took a look at that issue, and we're gonna break it down picture by picture, frame by frame, taking you inside a car to see exactly how that could or could not have potentially happened.
He was seeing someone who was identifying as a male.
Ezra McCandless had changed her name from Monica to Ezra. She is standing trial for stabbing one of her lovers to death.
Was this murder?
She fought to survive.
How many stab wounds are too much for self-defense?
Her wounds could have been self-inflicted.
This case is about a twisted form of love.
This is an important message for anyone with Medicare or who expects to join soon.
This card I'm holding in my hand, it's an example of an all-in-one Medicare Advantage membership card.
The kind of Medicare coverage that comes with this simple little card can help you in so many ways.
The Medicare Advantage plan that I've got, it has paved the way for more independence. It's all-inclusive. They take care of all my pharmacy, they take care of all my medical, they take care of my doctor bills.
I actually don't even have to pay for a doctor visit, and that's fantastic.
If you're already on Original Medicare or you're about to become eligible, you may be familiar with Parts A and B.
Those cover your doctor visits and hospital care, things you'll also get in an all-in-one Medicare Advantage plan. But all-in-one Advantage card holders may get so much more.
I have only one card, and that card helps me with my vision costs, my dental costs, my pharmacy costs, my doctor costs.
Let's scroll a list of the potential benefits that can be covered with this single kind of card. And remember, in addition to all of this, you're still getting the Medicare, hospital, and medical benefits to which you're entitled. Oh, and are you sitting down? These plans may have a $0 monthly premium depending on where you live, no matter your health status or how much money you earn each year.
It is not trickery at all when you hear $0. I'm proof positive.
I love the $0 plan. That fits my pocketbook really well.
Compared to original Medicare recipients, people with one of these all-in-one Medicare plans had 23% fewer hospital stays and 33% fewer emergency room visits, while also receiving more physician office tests and services.
I love my Medicare Advantage plan. I wouldn't get away from it for anything in the world. It's perfect for me.
I have been able to go out and live a healthy lifestyle, been able to do all the things that I need health-wise, and because I'm able to do that, I feel good about myself, and it has saved me so much money.
One card, one company, one complete and convenient package of Medicare benefits to help you get well or stay well.
And for one low or no monthly plan premium. That's the kind of value you can't afford to ignore. So why not find out more right now? Here's how.
Call 800-525-7153 or visit thiscard800.com for free information about this incredible card with no obligation of any kind. This is free information that could give you more coverage for less money. Call 800-525-7153 or go online now to learn more.
Attention cancer victims who use the weed killer Roundup. A federal jury unanimously found that Monsanto's popular weed killer Roundup was a substantial factor in causing cancer. You may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you or someone you love used Roundup and were diagnosed with cancer, call the number on your screen now. Don't wait. There may be time deadlines to file a claim.
Call 800-549-6270. That's 800-549-6270.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not these injuries that you observed were self-inflicted or inflicted?
Well, clearly, and from my medical record, I felt that they were self-inflicted. And that's why I wanted to have a mental health evaluation done on the patient.
That was the emergency room physician who treated Ezra McCandless after the attack happened, and whether it's self-defense or murder, whatever the jury says they say at the end of the case. But he treated her. He's not a paid, hired gun for the prosecution. He's a fact witness who happens to be an expert who said, guess what? Those wounds on Ezra were self-inflicted. And he came to that conclusion prior to her ever even being a suspect in a murder case. Okay, so it has nothing to do with this trial, the context of his opinion. Anyhow, all of this very important, especially when we talk about the words boy that were written on the forearm, on the left forearm of the defendant. It's really an important fact in this case, and it's one where you've heard kind of the defendant and her attorneys argue both ways, that either she did it to herself or maybe she didn't. Take a listen.
You've never heard of a subset of that then called knife play, right?
No,
You're not familiar with it.
no.
So you would agree that the wounds that you saw are from somebody laying very still, correct? You talked about how when
Yes.
somebody self-inflicts a wound, they have a lot of control, so they can do something like not move their arm, right?
Correct.
And it's also consistent with somebody laying very still and having these marks carved in them by another person, right?
The ones that I saw don't seem to be consistent with that.
If a person was very still, took a knife and held it still by another person, we'll just have you try it on me. The pen is closed.
So, Your Honor, I'm going to object.
We're not going to have the doctor drawing on counsel.
Well, he wasn't going to draw on me because the pen isn't on. I wasn't going to draw on me.
Okay, well, I think we get the point,
All
counsel.
right. The point is that you could take that, I can hold my arm very still, and you could put in straight lines on my arm, right?
That's called surgery. We have patients very still to be able to put controlled lines in. So yes, actually, they can be done that way.
But at that time, I asked you, if someone is just laying there still, a different person could be inflicting wounds that include parallel lines or superficial, correct? And your answer was sure.
Yep.
In your opinion, they're not consistent, but you weren't in the back seat of the car.
Correct.
Right? Where Ezra McCandless was cut by that knife, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Assumes facts, not in evidence.
Sustained.
You weren't present when Ezra McCandless received the cuts to her body.
Correct.
You have not seen a videotape of what's happened.
I have not.
She didn't tell you what happened.
Correct.
And we all agree medical diagnoses can shift when other information is presented.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
You haven't been given any further information since your day in the emergency room, right?
That's correct. My medical opinion is based on the patterns of the wounds all fitting into the same scenario.
So the doctor's opinion very clear that they would be self-inflicted. Let me show you the photo again of the markings on the forearm. And as if you look at that, it's on the top of the left forearm, okay? The word boy, even though it looks a little bit like box, it's the word boy, and then there's another scratch that's kind of coming through there, okay? So the question is she the only one who could have done that? Or could Alex have done it in the car? So what we did here at Closing Arguments, one of our producers, we put the word boy on her forearm in the same place. And here you see the first photo that we did. This is her writing it herself. As you can see, the way it's situated on her arm, very, very consistent with what the doctor was saying. So the question is it even possible for someone else to write it with the words facing in that direction on someone's left arm in a car. So let's take a look at another photo. We've got the person portraying Ezra in the front seat on the driver's side with a passenger. So you've got a leaning over. Okay, I got my think tank here in studio. Does this make any sense to you? Is this a possibility? Could Alex have done it in some sort of knife edging sex role play where she's in the driver's seat with the left hand on the steering wheel, holding steady while he carves boy into her arm?
I mean, of course it's possible, but is it reasonable? Is the question for the jury. Is it reasonable that this is how this wound was inflicted? And unfortunately, you know, with the doctor's testimony there, that's the actual treating physician in the ER. Jurors take doctors, you know, testimony as gospel. And I think this doctor did an amazing job for the prosecution's case.
He stuck to his guns. I mean, he listened to the defense attorney questions and he stuck to his guns based on my evaluation, based on my review.
Okay, but is that possible? Look at what's happening right there. Is that possible?
Yes, it's also possible unicorns are in the backseat of the car.
Yeah.
That's in the same ballpark. And again, this is the same ballpark as unicorns.
In the same ballpark as unicorns being in the backseat of that car.
All right, now Jason, I don't think Jason, you can necessarily see this on your end in Wisconsin, but
I can't.
Tell me just in the big picture, do you think that it's reasonably possible, okay, reasonably possible that Alex could have written the word boy?
Look, it may be possible, but, you know, this is a credibility issue because you've got the statements, and let's not forget about the statements that Ezra made to police where she kind of goes back and forth on this issue, and she seems to say that she inflicted that on herself. And I mean, that gets to the heart of the case, really, is the credibility battle that we have here, where the physical evidence is going to be contrary to some of the things that I think, if she takes the stand, which I think she has to, it's going to be a tough hill to climb because, you know, she's basically committed herself to something that I think is already impeachable. Because if she says she didn't put it on there, that Alex did it, well, then you show her the statement or you play her the recording where she said she did, and vice versa. So I think that to focus on it, I think the defense has to accept the bad fact as it is. And
I don't know if they are, though, Jason.
But
I don't know if they are
it's going to be dispositive of this case.
Yeah, because they're bringing up this whole BDSM world, this edging that the criminal defense attorney was very familiar with. It was a big lesson a lot of us learned yesterday. So let's take a look at another one of the photos, another one of the scenarios. This time we've got Ezra in the passenger seat, Alex in the driver's seat. Let's take a look at that photo now. We've got that photo up. This way looks virtually impossible. I mean, you got to curl around. To me, that one makes no sense. Does that make sense to anyone?
It's awkward and it just looks so difficult to inflict. And in what context and what BDSM world would one want to be that uncomfortable?
That doesn't make sense to us. All right, we've got another one. Let's put Ezra in the rear driver's side and Alex in the rear passenger side. And if they're both in the back seat, all of a sudden it doesn't look that difficult, does it? Feel free to chime in, Ashley.
Looks much easier there. I mean, you know, look, I'm always going to say it's possible. And the fact that, you know.
The defense is trying to sell. The cross-examination was very clear. She was talking about how you can lay still during a game of edging. You know, bondage, right?
Well, apparently.
Masochism,
Apparently
sadism,
some of our witnesses didn't know about it.
domination.
I think they're going to be common sense jurors down there who are not going to engage in this kind of speculation of what could be possible.
This is what she's going to testify to. What if she testifies to this?
They've got
Can the jury buy that?
I agree with Jason. She's already got some of her statements in there. And if she testifies, and she wants to now explain these discrepancies, this may go against her. I don't think this is something.
I don't think all that happened in the back of a car or in the front of a car. All that didn't happen in a car, where there was time to cut. You know, him.
Where did it happen?
No,
outside in the cold.
No, but I'm saying him supposedly cutting her.
Oh, him doing to her.
Some level of confrontation and some scuffle or some fight taking place, and then she ends up stabbing him all this number of times. Like all that didn't happen.
The defense is saying this happens beforehand. All right. Have you been in the world of BDSM? Okay? Bondage, domination.
Jurors don't want to hear all that.
They've heard it already,
I'm just
and they're
saying,
going to hear
in
more
terms of
when she
when you
takes the
think
stand.
about
Jurors have to hear it, though. I mean, I've had to
going
stand
to
in
hear
front
it.
of a jury of little old church-going ladies on a Monday morning explaining what BDSM is.
Let me tell you, everybody's got a computer. Some of these jurors may be more familiar than you think. Let's take a look now at the next scenario that we have. This time we've got Ezra as the rear passenger seat, Alex in the rear driver's seat. And in this scenario, this again is the upside down. This is the one that makes no sense to me. None whatsoever. Right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's why you end up having Boy being so screwed up. I mean, it looks like somebody may have, maybe the first line on the Y, which makes it look like an X, is done by somebody who's looking at it upside down. I mean, there's an argument right there for you.
Here's the question. When the jurors ask the question, didn't they present evidence that she used to cut herself?
Yeah.
And when they answer that question, yes, she used to cut herself. Oh, that's what she did. She cut herself.
Well, then how come she's doing such a terrible job spelling and making it look like the word that she's claiming it is?
Because she premeditated cutting herself to try to blame it on him.
That she should have done a better job.
I get it, but like she should have been a better criminal as well, which she wasn't.
We've got one more scenario, and this is I think the same positions, but the arm is changed now. Now the arm is up. Look at that. I mean, if you're playing a game of BDSM, which none of us have played. Silence. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure. All right, Jason, let me ask you. If she testifies, right, and she says, yes, we're involved in some intense BDSM inside that car, and then things went south, do you think the jury can buy that? And perhaps she even tries to sell that he's writing the word boy, and that's what sets her off, and then she tries to get out, and there's a struggle. Is that where they have to go?
Yeah, I think that they have to. Now, whether they buy it, it's a tough sell because you've got all the other issues with the cut clothing and all of these what they're calling defects, but are just basically rips in the clothing. They really have to explain, and you have someone who basically says, I blacked out. And that's a tough sell. If someone says they blacked out once, it's going to be a tough sell to say, okay, now I do remember. And it just so happens that everything I'm going to tell you is going to establish that this is a valid claim of self-defense. That's a tough sell to a jury, particularly with the evidence that they've already been exposed to. And jurors may be turned off by the whole BDSM thing and not even want to hear it, just think she's a liar.
Now, the defense does hedge a little bit in the cross-examination of the ER doctor. It's not just all that, hey, it was BDSM and he's the one who card boy. They have another potential scenario. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where the defense is going to end up on all this, but take a listen.
Trauma can be from being attacked. We can all agree with that,
Yes.
right? Trauma can be for having to fight for your life. We can all agree with that, right?
Yes.
Trauma can be being cut with a knife in unwanted sexual activity, right?
It would be, I imagine.
And trauma can be a reason why a person would take a knife and write the word boy into their own arm, correct?
Yep.
All right, is that a better route for the defense to take? Again, I always prefer the truth, personally, when we're talking about testimony and arguments in a courtroom. But sometimes we have to go with which is the better story here. So is this a better story for the defense? That, hey, she was so traumatized by this edging game that they were playing that at the end of the whole thing, she ends up carving boy herself.
At the end of what? At the end of stabbing him?
I don't know.
At the end of stabbing him 16 times, and then she's faced with a body full of blood and wounds, and that she got so traumatized that she cuts herself as well? Okay, that plays right into the story of murder.
There's a lot going on in that car if all that happened that way.
I mean, but it's also, a plausible scenario that the defense would be remiss not to put out. If you're the defense attorney and you're not putting out every single possible hole in the prosecution's case, you're not doing your job.
All right, folks, what a day inside the courtroom. There was a lot of DNA evidence. There, of course, was the father of the defendant who testified for the prosecution. But who had a better day? When we come back, our think tank will let us know.
Hi, my name is Sam Davis, and I'm going to tell you about exciting plans available to anyone with Medicare. Many plans provide broad coverage and still may save you money on monthly premiums and prescription drugs. With Original Medicare, you're covered for hospital stays and doctor office visits, but you have to meet a deductible for each, and then you're still responsible for 20% of the cost. Next, let's look at a Medicare supplement plan. As you can see, they cover the same things as Original Medicare, and they also cover your Medicare deductibles and coinsurance, but they often have higher monthly premiums and no prescription drug coverage. Now, let's take a look at Humana's Medicare Advantage plans. With a Humana Medicare plan, hospital stays, doctor office visits, and Medicare deductibles are covered. And of course, most Humana Medicare Advantage plans include prescription drug coverage. In fact, in 2018, Humana Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan members saved an estimated $7,400 on average on their prescription costs. Most Humana Medicare Advantage plans help you stay active and keep fit by including a Silver Sneakers fitness program at no extra cost. And you may be able to save on dental and vision expenses because coverage is now included with most Humana Medicare Advantage plans. You get all this coverage for as low as a $0 monthly plan premium in many areas. And your doctor and hospital may already be a part of Humana's large network. If you want the facts, call right now for the free decision guide from Humana. There is no obligation, so call the number on your screen right now to see if your doctor is in our network, to find out if you could save on your prescriptions, and to get our free decision guide. Licensed Humana sales agents are standing by, so call now.
Best Fiends. Collect JoJo and tons of other cute characters. Solve thousands of fun puzzles. Download Best Fiends for free today. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
Banking with Chime is very easy. I feel like I can finally trust my bank. There are no monthly fees. I get paid early. I always have peace of mind that my money is in the right place and in good hands.
Start banking with Chime today at chime.com.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-497-5903. That's 1-800-497-5903 now.
And in that, for that swabbing, I was attempting to obtain any DNA from any individuals who may have been wearing the coat. I obtained a mixture of DNA from at least 3 individuals. One of these individuals contributed more DNA to the mixture than anybody else, and I concluded that Alexander Woodworth is the source of that major contributor DNA. I also obtained a positive result for the possible presence of blood. I attempted to obtain a DNA profile, and I did obtain a female DNA profile, and I concluded that Ezra McCandless is the source of that DNA.
We take the last one over the top, which was 669.
From where I'm sitting, I can see the 2 on the sleeve here. It's getting a little muddy in the middle.
I don't know that I blame the defense. I think this has sort of been a theme throughout the trial where they're being thorough, but that thoroughness is getting redundant. And to your point, we already know that all of these things, it's not like, oh, look what we found. Right. It's like, well, we did find this, and we're hearing everybody's resume and everybody how they get, enough with the crime scene and investigators who know what they do. Yes, they know what they're doing, but it doesn't further anybody's narrative.
And so when you met with the officers on that day, fair to say you were under the influence?
Heavily.
Of alcohol, correct?
Yes. I was a little upset she drove and took the car, yes.
Sounds like you were angry and drunk?
Not something I'm proud of, but yes.
Might have exaggerated some of your thoughts about your daughter at that point?
I'm sure, yes. There are several, yes.
And I didn't mean to say lots, like, how many guns do you have in your house?
In the proximity of a dozen.
Were the guns accessible to Ezra McCandless in your house on March 22nd, 2018?
They're readily available, yes. I gave her a knife similar to this one to keep in her vehicle with her. As I told her, it had a seatbelt cutter on it. It also has a punch on the end for breaking a window in the event that you would need it in an accident you were in yourself, or if you came upon a car accident that you could be of help.
That, based on opening statements, is correct, and they're starting to point towards that even through this witness, her father, saying that, didn't she tell you the day before, March 21st, 2018, that she had to take care of some things the next day? They even talked about this pep talk he had with his daughter, but, you know, life starts tomorrow, building up to witnesses we will hear from tomorrow, which had the journal entry she made the night before this incident. They point to that as premeditation, and Jason Mingle will be on the stand tomorrow. I'm sure the prosecutors will take advantage of that as well.
All right, so who had a better day today? A lot of DNA evidence entered, and of course, you had the father of the defendant talking about the murder weapon, and the cross-examination by the defense, pretty effective. So who had the better day? Prosecution or defense? Bring back in our think tank and begin with John Luczak out there in Wisconsin. Jason, I keep calling you John. Jason, who had a better day? Prosecution or defense?
I'm going defense. You know, the last thing that the jurors heard was something that was powerful evidence. I think you finally humanized Ezra McCandless with the testimony of her father. I think that the DNA evidence, you know, ultimately today, I don't think the jurors are going to be able to sort out one way or the other, whether it was pro-defense or pro-prosecution as far as the way that evidence was elicited today. So I've got to give it to the defense. I think that the father was kind of a surprising witness that we saw, because obviously the prosecution had no time to prep him. And it was obvious that there were some questions, I think, that were left unanswered, and some questions that were answered that were positive for the defense on cross-examination. So today I've got to give it to the defense, but still a big mountain to climb for Ezra to get a not guilty in this case.
Absolutely. Ashley McMahon, prosecution or defense today?
I'm going to disagree with Jason for the first time tonight. I believe the prosecution had a better day. I think the ER doctor's testimony, he was not only a well-rehearsed witness, but a charismatic one as well. He seemed to stick by his guns and had consistent testimony. And I think the jury's going to put a lot of weight on his testimony. So again, we have a long way to go in this trial. However, today, if we're talking about today, prosecution.
Creighton, Washington, prosecution or defense?
Prosecution. When you're doing your job at its best, you're taking out all other explanations about what could have happened. And so getting into whether she should have used a gun or whatever, he was killed by a knife. She had a knife. There's testimony about her dad giving her a knife. And then when you have the ER doctor saying, I asked for a mental health evaluation because of the fact that she had written this on her arm, like, he's an independent witness who doesn't have to say anything. And the fact that he's saying that goes a long way toward jurors.
Jesse Law, prosecution or defense today?
It was clearly the prosecution. I mean, putting up the father just established the fact that she had access to the weapon. And with the voluminous evidence they have already, with the doctor's information, what Ashley and Quinton have referred to, prosecution prevailed today.
All right, that was today. Tomorrow's another day. Let's check back in with Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter with a look at what we can expect tomorrow out in Wisconsin.
41 witnesses down and many more to go in the prosecution's case in chief. Tomorrow is day 7 in Wisconsin versus Ezra McCandless, and it's going to be a huge day. Finally, this jury will hear from the defendant's ex-boyfriend, Jason Mingle. We've been anticipating his testimony, and he will give this jury a lot of context and to the events leading up to the death of Alex Woodworth on March 23, 2018. I'm sure they will be alert and taking a lot of notes during his testimony, but also during other state witnesses. We're going to hear from investigators who confiscated the journals of Ezra McCandless and how important they are to the state's case, including a friend of the defendant, to talk about her journal entry the night before this happened. Will that go to premeditation for the state? We'll have to find out tomorrow. Vinny, back to you.
All right, Stanley Payne for us at the courthouse. And I want to say a big thank you to Jason Luczak, who's joining us from Wisconsin tonight. Jason, appreciate your insight into what happened inside that courtroom, and hope you can come back to the show before we get to a verdict in this case. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit, take you down to the other trial that we're covering. You see right there. Oh, it's gone. Where'd it go? That was the verdict clock. That's right. There it is. 7 hours, 14 minutes of deliberation. Still no verdict. But a huge question today from the jury down in Fort Myers in the case against Jimmy Rogers, the murder of Dr. Teresa Sievers. We'll take a look at that next.
He was seeing someone who was identifying as a male.
Ezra McCandless had changed her name from Monica to Ezra. She is standing trial for stabbing one of her lovers to death.
Was this murder?
She fought to survive.
How many stab wounds are too much for self-defense?
Her wounds could have been self-inflicted.
This case is about a twisted form of love.
We're looking for a few not-so-good drivers. Had an accident? Credit not perfect? You're probably paying too much for car insurance, if you can afford it at all.
I have a choice?
Yes, Good to Go auto insurance costs less. Buy just what you need to be legal. Put as little as $20 down, pick a due date, then pay monthly. Go to goodtogo.com. Get a rate quote in under a minute. It's fast, cheap, and easy. Goodtogo.com. That's good, number 2, go.com.
For more than 150 years, Brinks has been trusted with keeping your money safe. Now, Brinks introduces the Brinks Prepaid MasterCard to help protect what matters most to you. When security matters most to your family, you can trust Brinks.
Managing a family is a big responsibility.
They rely on us, and we rely on Brinks.
When having confidence that your money is safe matters most, Brinks can help. And integrity and trust are hallmarks of Brinks' heritage.
I trust Brinks to help me do the right things with my money, and my family trusts me.
When getting paid faster matters most, you can trust Brinks' direct deposit. Get your paycheck or government payments up to 2 days faster.
Direct deposit puts our money in our hands faster than a paper check.
And Brinks helps us spend responsibly. We can track our purchases and pay bills online.
The Brinks difference? All the simple-to-use budgeting tools that make us better at managing our money.
And doing a better job gives us peace of mind.
Call now or go online to order your Brinks Prepaid MasterCard. There's no credit check and no cost to order. When having control of your money matters most, you can trust Brinks. Just load money onto your card account or use direct deposit. Shop at your favorite stores or online, pay bills, buy groceries.
With Anytime Alerts, I get a text message every time I use my card, so I can keep track of my balance.
Call now or go online to order your Brinks Prepaid MasterCard. There's no credit check and no cost to order. And with a qualifying direct deposit, we'll upgrade you to Brinks Preferred, including a savings account that can earn up to a 5% annual percentage yield. Even choose your card design. Now it's your turn to experience the Brinks difference. Get paid up to 2 days faster with Brinks Prepaid MasterCard. Get the peace of mind you deserve with MasterCard's zero liability protection. For more than 150 years, Brinks has helped people build better lives by protecting what matters most. Call right now to order your Brinks Prepaid MasterCard. Call 1-800-807-3725. There's no cost to order. Call now.
Best Fiends. Collect JoJo and tons of other cute characters. Solve thousands of fun puzzles. Download Best Fiends for free today. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
With the money I've made on Poshmark, I've been able to pay for all our family's vacations.
I could pay for my wedding just on what I've made from Poshmark.
I've made over $10,000 and I was able to buy my new car.
Download the free Poshmark app now.
Mark Sievers was married to Teresa Sievers. Curtis Wright was Mark Sievers' best friend. Wright lived in Missouri and was neighbors with Jimmy Rogers. Both men had prior run-ins with the law. Teresa Sievers was murdered on June 28, 2015, in her home in Florida. Wright was investigated in the case and pointed the finger at his friends, Jimmy Rogers and Mark Sievers. Wright took a deal and is facing 25 years in prison for his role in the murder. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty against Rogers and Mark Sievers, who both are facing capital murder charges in separate trials.
And the jury has been out more than 7 hours, have not reached a verdict yet, but they did have some questions. And Court TV crime and justice reporter Julie Janae has more for us from Fort Myers tonight.
That's right. These jurors have asked to come back tomorrow, telling the judge that they want to continue looking over the information with fresh minds. There had been a concern earlier in the afternoon that they may be deadlocked because they sent a note to the court saying that they were unable to reach a decision and that they needed the court's direction. But after further questioning from the judge to get clarification of what they meant, they did say that they felt that they could use more time if they looked at the information more and deliberated with their fellow jurors. So that is what they elected to do, to come back tomorrow instead of going later into the evening. Now, they've been deliberating since 10 o'clock this morning. They had about 3 questions or notes that they sent to the court asking for more information, and the most substantive of those notes was their request for more information about Taylor Showmaker, the ex-girlfriend of the defendant Jimmy Rogers. She was a key witness for the state, and she was the person who really connected him to this crime by saying that he admitted to her that he was involved in the murder and that he was going to get money from it and that he used a hammer to do it. Now, today, those jurors asked for all of the statements that Showmaker made to police several times before she actually took the stand, now 4 years after this happened, and they asked for the transcript of her testimony here in court. They were told by the court that they could not get back the actual statements because they're not in evidence, and that they couldn't get a transcript, but they could sit through a readback. So that's what they did for an hour. They listened to the court reporter reading back that entire testimony, and I noticed some of the female jurors writing very furiously when the court reporter was reading the testimony about the items that Showmaker noticed in her kitchen after Jimmy Rogers returned from his trip to Florida. And that included a rolled up jumpsuit and a hammer and a backpack and a cooler. And they also wrote a lot of notes when she talked about the conversation that she had with this alleged confession. So it tells us a lot about what these jurors may be thinking about and what their questions may be back in that jury room. They'll be returning here at 8:30 in the morning to continue those deliberations. Vinny, back to you.
All right, Julie today at the courthouse for us. And of course, deliberations will continue tomorrow. When that verdict happens, you will see and hear it right here on Court TV. In the meantime, the jury got the read back, but we're not going to give you the read back. We're going to actually show you the testimony of Taylor Showmaker. Let's take a look.
Rogers talked to you about making some money from the trip to Florida?
Yes.
And when did he talk to you about making some money from the trip to Florida? Do you remember if it was before he was going to Florida, after he came back from Florida, both, just that general time frame?
I don't remember.
Did he talk to you about how much money he hoped to make from the trip to Florida?
Yes.
And what did he say he hoped to make from the trip to Florida?
$10,000.
And did he tell you who was going to pay him that $10,000?
Not that I remember.
Did he tell you whether anybody else would be getting money from the trip to Florida?
Not that I recall.
Did Mr. Rogers tell you how he was supposed to get the $10,000?
Not as I recall right now.
If I were to show you part of your statement, page 37, which is 5333 in Discovery.
I'm sorry, 5, 3.
5 and then 3 3s, yeah, 5333. If I were to show you a page from your statement. Do you think that might refresh your recollection?
Possibly.
I'm going to hand you page 37. You can read the entire statement from top to bottom. Part of it has been circled, but please start at the top if you want and read to the bottom, okay? And then when you're done reading, let me know and look up. The showmaker, did that refresh your recollection as to where he said the money would come from?
Yes.
And where did Mr. Rogers tell you the money would come from?
It would come from Wayne.
And how was Wayne getting it?
Objection.
Ruled.
How was Wayne getting it? Where was Wayne getting it from?
From Mark, and Mark was getting it from her life insurance policy.
We heard when you started testifying about telling Mr. Rogers when he came back from Florida that you were pregnant. Did you have that child?
Yes.
And how old is that little girl now?
3.
And was it difficult for you to tell law enforcement what you knew?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes.
And was it hard for you to tell law enforcement where Mr. Rogers had thrown the cell phone pieces and the blue overalls?
Yes.
Is it difficult being here today?
Very.
Overruled.
Is law enforcement paying you to come in here and testify?
No.
Would you ever be untruthful?
Objection.
No.
Sustained.
Did there come a time in 2016 when you called Detective Downs and asked if there was any way there could be some help for you financially?
Yes.
And did there come a time after that when you started to receive a check?
Yes.
And was that in the amount of $400?
Yes.
Do you see you have to say out loud,
Yes.
Showmaker, if you would turn and point to the person that you're identifying as Jimmy Ray Rogers. Can you tell us something he is wearing?
Red tie.
Your Honor, that is the only red tie at the table. State asks that the record reflect she's identified Jimmy Ray Rogers.
We'll let the record so reflect.
Such an important witness for the prosecution because their other star witness is an admitted killer, a man who admitted that he took a hammer and bludgeoned Teresa Sievers to death, okay? So that's someone who obviously has a reason to lie. But how about Taylor Showmaker? Let me bring that back in the think tank. Your thoughts about her testimony, the importance of it, and the fact that the jury wanted to hear it again.
That's a very engaged jury. They're clearly going through the evidence. They're clearly going through all the documentation and asking questions and trying to, analyze everything they have. And the fact that they're taking this length of time, especially with Showmaker's testimony, and yes, even with the testimony of the convicted, the admitted killer, I mean, I don't understand what's taking the jury, except, you know, I applaud the jury for taking their time with the evidence because I think they're going to convict Rogers.
I think they got back there, and it might be one or two people who were having a disagreement about what she said, and they were like, "Well, fine, we'll just hear it." And the judge said, "You got to hear the whole thing," and they're like, "Fine, we'll hear the whole thing, and we can go back there and vote."
Did you find her credible?
Yes, I did. I think she was obviously very uncomfortable on the stand, but thank God we have Julie Janae down there to watch the jurors and actually tell us, you know, what they're doing, what they're taking notes on, what they're paying attention to. Because as attorneys, you know, once the jury goes back in that deliberation room and they start talking amongst themselves or having, you know, probably an argument about a particular piece of evidence, we have no idea why they want to rehear someone's testimony, especially a star witness like that. So I'm so glad we got to hear that they're looking at items that she mentioned were in her kitchen.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to get you ready for the next big trial here on Court TV.